Good morning, my artsy friends. Happy Monday. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Monday morning live. Um, Hopefully, everyone is doing well. It is a beautiful day for you. You enjoyed your weekend. You woke up bright eyed and bushy tailed, and you are ready to tackle another week of not only life, but creation as well, which now kind of the same thing. So, to kick everything off this morning, I am going to talk about my little painting issues, guys. We have a pre-recorded video coming up this Wednesday, as you know. And due to some events over the weekend, I have had some struggles creating. Have you ever gone through that? Has that ever happened to you? You have something happen that's a little tasking, a little troubling, and it just kind of throws your whole aura off. Now, as you guys know, I have been testing or we unboxed, and I told you I was going to start to field test the Porter Schminkel and Company's professional watercolor pen. This is the little travel tin that we unboxed and swatched. If you remember, here are the swatches. We did some, excuse me, we did some really big swatches here on some Paul Rubens paper because I wanted to see how they were going to granulate. Now, mind you, I will say when we were initially swatching these and it was the paper was still wet, there looked like there would be like this large amount of granulation in the paints. Hey Amy, welcome in, love. Um, but as you can see, since they have dried, the granulation kind of settled to what you would typically expect the granulation to be in. That's the Viridian, which is the PG18, the ultramarine finest is what they call it. The PB29 and the raw umber, which is a PY43, has a bit of texture to it as well. There's a little bit in the Payne's gray because of the mixture of the PBK7, but not nearly as much granulation as they appeared to have when we initially swatched them. Now, I decided I was going to, of course, field test them. Let me show you what I did. So I took the little, I'm calling it a box, Bijou box, and as you know, there were 8 colors included. The ones on the top row, the ones on the bottom row. So I took some Cotman, yes, Cotman watercolor paint, half pans, and put a couple of colors down that middle empty row, just so I can kind of augment the set. Now, as I am doing the field test, I'm trying to limit the use of any of the 4 down the middle. But I definitely wanted to add a cooler red and a cooler yellow to the set. I added a sap green because the Viridian is great and very clean and transparent for mixing. But as far as a convenience green is concerned, I love sap green, so I threw that in. And then this initial set comes with a yellow ochre and a raw is it raw umber? I think it's raw umber. Yes, a yellow ochre and a raw umber. So I added a burnt umber because you guys know I love my gray mixture between burnt umber and ultramarine. Um, and I set out to do some paintings. Now I'm going to show you guys some of the things that I have done over this weekend since the window was broken. Um, but I could not create anything I was satisfied with. Now I shot videos for pretty much everything I'm about to show you. I have no idea which one of these videos will be coming out on this pre-recorded Wednesday. I may end up trying to cram in shooting an entire different video just because I was not completely satisfied with the artwork I was able to do just because I was not in the creative headspace, which I'm going to go ahead and throw out now. What we're doing today is going to be easy and satisfying because I need a win. I need a win. So the first thing I set out to do was the May watercolor calendar. As you guys know, we have been working with the watercolor calendar starting back in January, or basically December of last year, where we're doing kind of watercolor painting from the Grabby watercolor calendar. Do I have it? I do. I do. So here is the calendar. You guys remember, I think I gave one of these away. I think I did. I think I did. But anyway, we started out with January. We've done February together. We did March. together. Now, April, I do not believe we did together. That was the one that I think I missed releasing a video for. Um, so because I missed releasing that video, I wanted to make sure to record a video for the May calendar sheet. And I just was not happy. I decided to tackle doing Lily of the Valley, which is the birth flower for May, or Hawthorn, one or the other. So I settled on Lily of the Valley because I've never really painted. It's a very delicate flower, but as you can see, my illustration turned out to be a bit heavy-handed, and throughout this creation process, I really lost track of the lights in my painting. So I ended up having to reinsert those lights with those lighter tones with gouache, which really wasn't reinserting, it was just adding white to it. So I feel like I lost some of the life to the painting. The lily of the valley flowers themselves did not turn out as kind of glowy and transparent as I wanted them to. I couldn't get the toning and the shadows and the leaves right. I was just having an issue. But I did record it, and I'm thinking that just to kind of maybe walk through how a painting will not always go right when you're painting. You won't always achieve perfection. That's just kind of how it is. So I was thinking about just releasing that video this Wednesday anyway. That way it can be a lesson in not only how to bring back some lights to your painting once you've lost it, but also being comfortable and okay with the fact that every single thing you create will not be a masterpiece. And I know we say that, but I think as artists, we are really hard on ourselves. Even in the back of our mind, knowing that we don't have to create a masterpiece, when we don't, it bothers us. Well, at least me anyway. I might be in by myself on it. So I decided, okay, well, I need to paint. Something else. I need to shoot something else just in case I decide not to put that one up. So I pulled out, you guys know I've been working on animals, and you remember I did the rabbit over in the first water soluble Sunday fun day. So I said, okay, well, I want to do another animal, and I decided to tackle, you ready? A rooster. But again, I just wasn't completely satisfied with the way he came out. It's terrible. I don't know. He's walking right here, so his legs look a little awkward to me. Maybe like a horse versus a rooster. I don't know. I just again wasn't completely pleased with it. I was happy with the texture, sort of the emulation of maybe he has feathers on his body. I was happy with the way they came out, but overall, you know. I did this on the Strathmore 400 book. I don't know. So I did record that one, and I was like, okay, this is just terrible. It's terrible. So I started on the third one. And it's a landscape. It's not completed yet. And after I got halfway through with it, I started on a fourth one. So I've just had a mental block this weekend with being able to get anything truly created that I'm satisfied with, that I feel comfortable putting out. I don't know, maybe I'll mesh two or three of the creations together into one video. Um, I don't know. I don't know. So that's kind of where we are on Wednesday's pre-recorded video, but there will be one dropping, and I'm hoping with all hopes that it's going to be something creative and fun loving. Um, just because, as I said, it's been a pretty trying weekend. Now, I created this little image. Well, let's back up for a second. Let's talk about new things that I have here in the studio. Uh, without dropping anything. So, just kind of a recap. You guys may remember there was a little bit of a art haul done, just a very little one. And I showed you guys that I picked up the from the Stabilo Woody's 3-in-1. We'll be unboxing and swatching and field testing those. I picked up the Paul Rubens pastels. Now, I've heard a lot of pastel artists that I respect kind of raving about not only how soft these are, but they also come with light fast and pigment information, which is really promising. So I can't wait to get around to those. And I think I showed you these before and told you that there were some other items I was waiting on. One of them won't arrive to May 2nd. That's the gouache sticks. I'm really excited about that because they're not advertised as temper sticks. They're advertised as gouache in stick form. And I'm just really curious about that. So I can't wait till they arrive. But in the meantime, the crayons I was talking to you guys about did show up. And that's the Niji artist crayons. Now, these are wax based crayons. They're not water soluble, they are water resistant. Um, and they are a professional grade of, you know, crayons. And I'm really into pastels, as you guys know. So I'm interested in seeing how these are going to work, how they're going to mix out, how they're going to blend. And of course, Niji is a pretty recognizable name, been around for a minute. So there were those. Then there was the trip to Jerry's, which happened on yesterday because after the coffee mug coming through the window, I wanted to, I needed, I had to relieve some stress some type of way. So I stopped by Jerry's and I picked up a few items at Jerry's too. Nothing too spectacular. I picked up some Strathmore pastel paper from a pastel work. Um, I've been using Canson, just the artist mixed media paper. This particular brand here for my oil pastel and wax pastel work. Uh, but it doesn't blend as great as I wanted to with the pastels for some reason. Now, as you can see here, it worked well. Here's where I was doing back when we did the Durant Chromaflow color pencil review. As you can see, this paper worked so well with colored pencils. Um, Even with like this is watercolor, color it watercolor brush pens. So it takes well to a lot of different mediums. I just don't necessarily like oil pastels. Ooh, look at that hydrangea, just terrible. That was a sketchbook journal creation way back. That's been so long ago. Um, that one too. This is when I call myself art journaling. And you create an image and you put a quote down. I don't know. This was kind of fun and freeing because when you're doing things like this, you're not really worried about the artwork coming out right. You're more so just kind of in the moment, creating from the prompt, having fun like that. I don't know. Maybe there's a couple of pages left in in this book, so maybe I'll finish it up with art journaling pages. That'll be fun. That would be fun. Don't Not necessarily worried about creating anything beautiful, but just kind of going off a quote and spreading positivity. I also picked up Sketch and Wash. These are water soluble graphite pencils, basically. Just regular graphite that's water soluble. This is by the Generals Company. They make pretty good, affordable, budget grade products, and you can find them in a lot of big box stores. But I saw a video the other day of somebody using water soluble graphite, and I thought to myself, that's so fun. Now, of course, I have the graphite tint pencils, and I probably could have just pulled those out, but hey, that was very affordable. This was like under $4. I think this was like 350 plus tax. So yeah, it was very affordable. And I picked up some clear gesso. Now this is Liquitex Professional Clear Gesso. Of course, Jerry's had many brands. I just wanted to try Clear Gesso out. I've never tried it. And the reason I picked up the Clear Gesso is because I started working on a project a mixed media project where I was trying to do a lot of different type of collaging. So I created this background, um, layering different layers of ink tints, pan paints on top of each other, allowing one layer to dry, come back putting something else on top, allowing that layer to dry, come back putting something else on top, until I initially or eventually came out with this kind of abstract page. Um, at one point, I thought about just tearing it off like this and framing it. But then I thought, you know what? It would be really cool if I could do like um, put some collage pages on here, maybe some book pages, and paint them with the ink tints. And then after that dries, I will cover it with the clear gesso and then do some type of pastel work on top of it. Maybe strawberries or cherries or something that'll play off all of the green tones in the background. So definitely red would be a really great color to do a creation with. So we'll see where that goes. That may come in an upcoming video at some point, where I'm kind of doing that. But I did just kind of want to show you guys where my mind was heading, what direction it was heading in with it. So that's really cool. I really can't wait to get that project kicked off and going the way I wanted to. And then finally, I picked up a box of Soho Urban Artist oil paints. So yes, we have the water mixable oils that you guys have heard me talking about for a minute. You probably think to yourself, Thrifty is never going to do this oil thing he's talking about, but I promise you I am. I kind of got sidetracked. I really did. I need to just go ahead and bite the bullet and do a water mixable oil video with a disclaimer in the very beginning that I do not work with oils outside of oil pastels. So you're going to have to definitely have grace for that video. What made me pick these up though, because these are not water soluble. These are just regular oil paints. Now, you guys know I use a lot of Soho products. I think that Soho is a really good um, quality store brand, you know, because it is one of the house brands for Jerry's. The reason I picked these up though is because, as you know, I have been working on making oil paint sticks. Now, the idea and the philosophy behind this in my head is that I like to work from stick media, excuse me. And I feel like if I have oil paint in the form of a stick, it'll force me to go ahead and start creating with it and start using it like I do oil pastels, and not necessarily be so timid and scared. Because I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be very honest. Oils is has have always kind of terrified me just a little bit. So with the introduction of water soluble oil paints, I felt like there would be a little bit more of a reprieve, because you don't have to worry about all the oils and the solvents, just water and go. But I still wanted to kind of work with the original oil formula in some way. And I've done a little research on making oil sticks from a couple of different artists across YouTube. Um, and between looking at the different things they've done, I came up with what would be the most cost effective and efficient way for me to be able to make them. So as you see here, I've made a yellow and a orange. I've got an ultramarine blue. I've got a lighter, um, more yellowy green here. And then as far as my darker green is concerned, mixing even the same formula that I did for the other ones, I didn't create as much filling for the stick, but nonetheless, I have the dark green. And of course, I need several other colors of reds and uh, warm tones and cool tones and all this carrying out and good stuff. So I picked up these oil paints so I could continue my journey of making the rest of my oil sticks. And I made sure that the tube size was the same size tube of paint that I used in creating the first couple of ones, so I can keep about the same consistency. The only difference is I don't know what the difference in the quality between the Soho and the original oil paints that I used will be. But we'll see. So there's another experiment. Yep, you guys know I love that experimenting stuff. There's another one coming up. And I think that pretty much wraps up all of the hoo-ha beforehand. What are we doing today? Today, we are diving into create your book. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open the cover. Now, I've been playing around with this book over in Patreon. So everything that you see that has already been done to the book is was done over in the Creation Station because Watercolor Sunday Funday just started. Um, and this would have been in the Creation Station anyway, because for this particular page, it was acrylic paint pens used in order to paint it. Now, the front of the book and the back of the book has been covered with mixed media paper from Christy Rice's one of her mixed media books, which I love the papers in that book because you can create on them or you can use them for your crafting projects. So as you can see, this is create this book. At this point, there's like 4 or 5 versions of this book, so most people are probably familiar with it by now, right? Okay. Um, you kind of walk through the whole premise of it is that you kind of walk through the book and it gives you instructions on what to do with each page. And by the time you're done, you've worked out all these different prompts and you kind of created your own book. Um, and over in the creation station, we've kind of gone through several different of these. We got the first page done. Like I said, we got the initial title page done. I was starting to work on this particular page because you're literally supposed to decorate every single page of the book. But I thought it would be really cute to grab this book. I've even created the artwork for the cover of the book. I'm kind of doing the cover of it like one of my card front journals. So I'll be putting a piece of backing paper behind this. It'll be attached to the front of the book, and then there'll be some type of book plate put at the top. Haven't quite figured out. I haven't worked on it. Not I haven't quite figured out, but I just haven't worked on it since I initially created this um, to go on the front of the book. But anyway, I figured it would be really cool to pick one of the prompts from the book today and kind of work on it. So I went through the book last night, and like I said, I'm gonna be honest. I needed a win. I needed an easy win. Um, so I picked one of the prompts towards the back of the book that says "Create scenery." Yep, you know where this is going already. So this particular prompt says, "Think about a place you would like to travel, real or fantasy. Draw pictures, take notes about how it would look and feel." Now, this book is not prepped for water soluble work. Now, this would be a really great way or a great place to use like maybe white gesso if you wanted to gesso the pages so you can create directly in the book if you're using a water soluble medium. This would be a place where you can kind of put a layer of watercolor ground if you wanted to go that route, or you can simply create on an additional page and insert it into your book, which is what I have been doing. Excuse me. And that's what we are going to be doing. Now I'm trying to find. All right. So let me show you the paper I normally create on when I'm inserting something into this book. And I do it because I want, it's a paperback book. I'm eventually going to be covering the spine, but you can see right there already that the book is starting to kind of tear on the spine. So I am going to be creating a cover to kind of wrap around. Maybe it's going to end up being a piece of fabric or something. But I want it to definitely be decorative since I've already put down um, the mixed media paper. But anyway, so we're going to do to create the scenery, and I'm going to be working on the graduate watercolor Canson Graduate Watercolor, and I chose this because it's 117 pounds. It's a pretty decent, okay paper to create on. This is the same paper I used to create the olive branch because I wanted an olive branch at the beginning of the book, just symbolizing peace. This book is gonna be a place of peace. And then for the acrylic paint work done here, um, it was also done on this paper, and it's worked out pretty well. I've been able to create on it. I think this is Fayez. This is super thin. It's either Fayez or Hemi. I think Fayez might be a little bit thicker than that. Either way, it worked well too. So that's what we're creating. That's what we're creating on. Now let's show you what we are working towards. This is Kobe Bloom Wilderness Watercolor Landscapes, 30 eye-catching scenes anyone can master. So this, my friends, is another educational resource, how to. Um, the thing about how to books is that they all tend to kind of start out the same way. The initial few chapters or few pages tend to cover the same type of information. Now, this is a book that's geared towards your more novice, beginner, maybe into intermediate watercolorist or person who is looking to become a watercolorist or it's a hobby or whatever. There are some really good lessons in this book. We're going to be tackling the very first one. Um, one, because it's simple, it's going to help us create quickly and it won't take up too much time. And like I said, it'll be a quick win. So, anyone out there that wants to follow along, please feel free. This will be something that you can do maybe to kick off your day of painting because you're going to go ahead and do some, more complicated stuff later. Because I'm going to tell you now, as I've said 2 or 3 times now, this is not going to be hard. So let's crack this open. So, of course, we have wilderness watercolor landscapes, 30 eye-catching scenes anyone can master. If you're on title page, you're going to move into your table of content. And this is where I'm saying how all how-to books kind of resemble each other. So you'll get the introduction, and in getting started you're going to talk about tools of the trade, you're going to talk about exploring watercolor, you're going to talk about color theory. Those 3 topics typically appear in every how-to watercolor book, every beginner watercolor book. So those are kind of things that you've sort of heard and covered already. Outside of color theory, because if you're brand new to watercolor and this is the very first instructional book you've ever picked up, then definitely all of that information is going to be very relevant to you. But if you've been painting for a while and this is not your first rodeo with the how-to book, those first 3 topics are going to be something that you've seen before. Now, where the book really starts to get really interesting is that it shows essential wilderness techniques. So it kind of concentrates on specific techniques that you would be using to create outdoors in the wild, landscapes, urban sketching, thing of that nature. Excuse me. And that starts here, essential wilderness techniques. And it's going to go over things like the basic idea behind creating mountains, which I'm not going to read through this because most of this is stuff that we do on the channel anyway. I just want to show you the meat of the book and what you're getting if you decide to pick this book up. Then there is going to cover trees, the different type of trees from conifers to deciduous. It's going to show you the different ways you could make those type of trees, the different techniques. For instance, the swooping technique or the blobby technique, which is the technique that I use when I'm creating my pine trees. Um, the dotted technique, which is not one I use often, but I've seen other artists use it. So it goes through the different ways that you can create these different type of landscape elements, which is a little bit more in depth than some other how-to books I've seen that may concentrate on a overall general um, topic versus getting very specific about specific landscape things, right? All right. It covers flowers. It covers creating water. It covers adding white into your wilderness. It covers how to create mist. It covers creating depth in your painting. Um, so, quite a few little subtopics throughout this particular lesson that I think is very beneficial to read through for someone who may be new to trying their hand at watercolor landscapes or maybe watercolor urban sketching, watercolor plein air work. Because unlike other how-to books, that particular section hones in on skills that'll make it easier for you to make quick decisions. Because like when you're painting outside, you're not really trying to paint a masterpiece. You're capturing information really quickly. You're trying to translate what you see onto paper, especially in plein air painting because lighting changes on a constant basis. So I really do love this particular section of this book, without a doubt. So then it moves on into, excuse me, a taste of the sky. Once you've had a taste of the sky, you will forever look up And that is a quote by Leonardo da Vinci. So, the sky is the cornerstone of any wilderness watercolor painting. Every landscape illustration I've ever painted began with the sky. And that seems to be the case for any landscape artist or any person painting a landscape. The first thing we hone in on or go for seems to be the sky. Now, there have been times when I've tried to force myself to work a different way, but if you've ever seen any of my landscape videos, more than likely the sky is where we start. Um, with the sky, and that's why it's our first priority when learning to paint the wilderness. By harnessing some of the most basic watercolor techniques, wet on wet and color theory, you can create breathtaking skies that will set the tone for any wilderness design. And then, of course, there's a beautiful illustration on the opposite page of basically like a sunset and with just silhouette painting. But it's amazing the effectiveness that that has. I've done that myself, even when I'm not painting a sunset or a night scene. I've just kind of been out on the go and trying to capture the information really quickly and translate it to my sketchbook, and I will, put the main colors that I see in the sky on the paper. I put the main colors that I see in the water on the paper. And although I'm painting a daytime scene, I will still use grays and blacks in order to portray the other items that are in the landscape because it helps me capture quickly. And then I can always go back into the studio or when I have more time, after, of course, snapping a shot of the scene with my camera from my phone, repaint it if I wanted to. So, very helpful, very helpful information. So, A Night Under the Stars is where we're going to start. Now, this is not a coloring book. This is actually a step by step walkthrough instructional book, sort of resembling the books we covered back during World Watercolor Month. The difference is this particular book does not come with any pre existing patterns that you can tear out and transfer, mainly because it's trying to encourage you to create these landscapes from scratch, which is why some of them are so easy, straightforward, and achievable. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be creating the Big Dipper, a scene with the Big Dipper that's going to be added into our Create This book. And we're going to be painting on the canson. So you get to see how this is done or how I do it. This is the last piece of paper in this pad, so I need to grab some more. But at least now I have the back and the creator journal with, right? Absolutely. So I'm thinking that I want this to be a full page spread. So I want this to run from one page to the other. I'm thinking I'm not going to crease it at this very moment, but I'll probably, of course, end up creasing it in order to fit it into the book. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure off where I need to cut this paper down to real quick. I didn't pre-do anything. I wanted to show you guys exactly how I was doing it all. I'm just going to grab a pencil here and I'm going to go in about 1/8 of an inch from the corner of that page. Hopefully that's right. Keeping in mind that, the book is going to be closing and we are going to have to glue it down. So, and then I need to do it for the height. And this isn't, it may seem like it probably will take a long time, but based on what we're doing, what we're creating, it won't. So I just made two little marks there, and I'm actually going to move this book out the way and grab my paper cutter. You can use scissors if you can cut straight, by go for it. If you maybe you don't want a straight edge on your paper, maybe you want a decorative edge, maybe you want to do like little scallop cuts or what have you to fit into the book. Hello, view. Welcome in, friend. How are you doing? Thank you so much for sharing. I love you for it. All right, so I'm just gonna line that up and put this down. And I'll do the same thing on the opposite side where I made my other mark. Okay. And I can move that out the way. And now let's just make sure this is gonna fit inside our. It does, but I feel like I wanna cut. Let me see. Because one step, oh yeah, I think I want to cut just a little teeny wanchy more off. And I'm okay with losing that real estate. I'm just using my, I'm getting rid of about another 1/4 inch on each side. All right, now that should fit. And I honestly don't even need the book anymore until I get this particular book anymore until I get ready to adhere the piece into the book. So we can put this to the side because we know we're creating a scene. I need watercolors. We're going to be using our Schminkle since we are still testing those. I'm going to be using bleed proof white because that's what we're going to use to create the stars. And then everything else, my friends, is going to be pretty easy and straightforward. Now, I'm not going to read through all of this. We're just going to create it. Of course, if you have this book, it is definitely my suggestion, or if you decide to buy this book, it's definitely my suggestion that you read through each one of the lessons before you decide to tackle it. This particular lesson we're doing today is broken down into 3 different steps. The first step is actually creating the night sky, where she's going to walk you, or I'm sorry, he's going to walk you through how to create a gradient going from darker to lighter all the way down to the bottom of your paper in order to create the base for the sky. There's definitely color suggestions made. In this particular one, they suggest using Payne's gray and lamp black. All right, or Payne's gray for the sky, which we may use that, but I think we're going to be using the Payne's gray and ultramarine blue mixed together. All right, and then step 2 takes you through actually making the Big Dipper. It shows you how to make the silhouette or the diffused shine of the star, and then how to put the star into the middle of that diffusion itself. So that's what step 2 covers. And step 3 basically covers how to put the trees or the treetops, because at the angle that you're looking at this particular sky, you wouldn't see an entire tree. You would only see the tree tops in this particular case. Now these are going to be conifer trees that are created, but you don't have to do a conifer. You can do a deciduous tree if you chose to. That's all up to your imagination and where you would like to take it. But this particular lesson is going to cover making the evergreens, and it's going to refer back to the different techniques that it showed with uh, in the beginning of how to create those trees. And it's showing you even here that it uses the blobby technique, which happens to be, as I said earlier, the same one that I use. But throughout the instructions, whenever it's making reference to something it wants you to refer back to remind you of, I love the fact that in parentheses, it throws that page number. So you can quickly go back to that particular information just in case you need to read over it again. So see here, the blobby technique. It tells you the resource, excuse me, page 26 and 27. I jump over to 26, 27. It immediately we were talking about trees, we're talking about conifers, and we're talking about the blob technique. So I like the way that is laid out. I really, really do. Although it may cover information that I already know, when I'm reviewing books like this, I try to have an objective opinion, because there are many books that are going to cover a lot of the same information that may be made for artists that are we're not on the same level as far as creation is concerned. So I try to be as objective as possible. So if I was a newbie looking at this book, I would definitely appreciate the quick reference back to the techniques that are being used inside each of the illustrations. So love that, love that. Now I'm just gonna throw this up here for visual reference. Let's see if I can get it up there and it'll stay. Let's see if it'll stay and not fall. we're gonna see how this work out. Can you guys see? Did I cover up? I might have covered up too much light. Let me move that. I think I covered up too much light. Okay, let's just go ahead and jump into getting started here. I am going to be using to start off a 3/4 flat synthetic squirrel. This is a soft brush, but it is synthetic hair meant to mimic a squirrel brush. I'm gonna wet that, and let's grab a palette here. We'll use our Christie, one I got from Chris. I love this palette. Love it, love it. Mainly because I know it's like one of a kind or limited edition or something of that nature. Might be one of a kind. I'm gonna grab some ultramarine blue, and we're gonna make a wash. This is pretty big piece of paper in contrast to the suggestion from the book. So I need to make a pretty substantial wash here. That's going to cover this entire piece of paper. And yes, we will be using the blow dryer hey, to dry this paper so that it doesn't take too long. We're an hour in. Hopefully we'll be able to finish this up in the next 10-15 minutes. So I'm adding quite a bit of blue to that. And then I'm going to jump down here to the Payne's Gray. I'm going to try to limit what I use in this painting to only the Schminke paints. I'll be honest with you guys. These are some beautiful professional paints, but I can already tell you they're not my favorite. I can already tell you. Let's see what we have here. Ooh, that's beautiful. I like that. That's pretty. Um, I wonder if it's gonna split apart like that in color. Okay, and I'm gonna put just a little blue over here. And this is being done with less water. Now I'm using a really big brush, and little travel sets like this are not really made for big brushes. Let's be honest. So I'm going to get it dirty. I'm trying to be careful, trying not to contaminate my other wells that are sitting there. Put just a little water in that, but I definitely want this stronger than my other mixture. A little more blue. So same colors used to mix two different tints, one watery, one a little bit more on the sort of skim milky side, and not quite as much of that because that one will only be used to add saturation to the top of the paper if we need to. Now I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm actually going to wet my paper. And I didn't clean my brush all that well, but there you go. I did not tape this paper down, which probably is going to prove to be a mistake. So tape your paper down. But we're going to work it anyway. This is 117-pound paper, so without a doubt, it will do buckle. It will buckle. And I'm just going to put a quick sheen glisten water on here. And we're going to try to do this. I'm going to grab my more watery color, and we're going to start at the top. And we are going to, from side to side, work our way down until the brush runs out of paint. Now, if you was working on a smaller area, you'd probably get a lot more accomplished at once. I'm going to wet that brush, rinse it off just a bit, starting at the bottom of where I ran out of paint. I'm going to grab it and continue to work it all the way down until basically you got clear water. Now, that's not nearly. Bye, Nicole. Hope to see you tonight at 5. Um, that's not nearly enough, so I'm gonna grab some more of my tint. And whenever you're doing this, you want to always start back at the top of your paper to keep your gradient consistent. Now, I'm actually gonna break that rule. Know it to break it. Remember that. Remember, we say that all the time. You first have to know how to follow the rule. before you decide to go out and break it. Now, what I'm doing is forcing that color on down my paper because I'm using a much bigger piece of paper than is suggested in the actual book. All right, now I'm gonna wet my brush and using clean water, I'm gonna drag that on down some more. I'm gonna grab my more concentrated color, go back across the top and from side to side. I'm gonna work that down simply because I want the top of my sky much darker. And I'm working it down about until it runs out of paint or till I can see a difference. And then I'll go back up with it because I don't want to darken anything below it any more than I have. All right. And this paper dries super quick, so I'm re-wetting the bottom portion again. And I also have my ceiling fan on because it was a little warm in this studio. And I'm going to add a little paint. I really want that gradient to come all the way down. So I was really heavy with the water on the bottom just so I can make sure it dries much lighter than anything done at the top. And I'm constantly grabbing water, adding water to my paper because I know it's going to diffuse and force a shift, force a color shift. And you just keep working it until you're happy with it. Just keep in mind you're creating a gradient, so you want it to be lighter at the bottom, heavier in the middle, the heaviest at the top. Continue to move your brush from side to side so that you can keep a flat wash and it'll dry flat. And I'm just doing some evaluating here, see if there's anything I want to change up a little bit, but I think I'm good. Okay, I think I'm good with that. We'll see how it shifts. We'll see if we need to put another layer on. Hopefully we won't need to. Now I'm gonna, if you have a heat tool, use your heat tool, but I don't have a heating tool. I have a hair dryer, and as long as I have a hair dryer that works, I refuse to buy a heating tool. That's just how that goes. Uh, but you use whatever you have in your studio. And if not, if you have to let yours air dry, then the great thing is you can always rewatch the live whenever you want because it's available to you. That way you can keep on with yours. All right. So I'm going to hit this with the, what is that? I know what that is. I'm going to hit this with the hair dryer. I'll try to check the comments over it. So as you can see, it's super light, nowhere near feeling like nighttime, maybe dusk, but not night. So I'm going to actually mix up. Let me grab a smaller brush here, and I'm going to mix here just Payne's Gray. And I'm going to try to mix up a pretty strong wash of this. Not too much water in it. Might as well throw some ultramarine in there. I like to keep the blue look to the sky. And I'll add just a little water to it, but not nearly as much as is in that middle wash that we made. And we can still use that middle wash to blend downwards with. And we're going to give it time to semi-dry, and then we're going to go directly in with gouache. Believe it or not, we're going to almost be done already. So the sky is the most complicated thing. I'm starting again at the very top of my paper, going across my sky. I want to keep it dark. I'm gonna grab some of that color in the middle, start to add it to the bottom. There we go. We're getting darker saturation. Now I'll grab water on that brush to start to blend down. I feel like I want more saturation, even more saturation at the top. It just doesn't seem to be enough. And that's one of the things that has kind of, concerned me with the paints. Well, not necessarily concerned me, because I do understand that I'm using them in a really watery wash right here. I get that, but I would just think that these paints would be stronger, even watered down. Ooh, my stomach growling. I am hungry already. Add blue to that. What time we got? We got 12. Okay. Yeah, we're doing good. I'm gonna add more water to it. I'm trying not to off throw the pigment ratio in it. I'm adding water so I have enough to work with as far as the wash is concerned, but I definitely don't want it to be weak, which is why I'm not pre-wetting the paper this time. Let's do this again. Because as you can see, they got kind of streaky, and we had a really nice non-streaky gradient at first. And I think I messed it up. I did. I really, really did. I'm not sure how I did, but I did. So I'm gonna wet it at the top again because I want it smooth. And using our more concentrated work, we're gonna once again start making our gradient, bringing it down our paper. I think this time we are going to be in a much better position as far as our color is concerned. Water to blend that on down, make sure there's no hard lines anywhere. Okay, I think right off that's already going to be better. All right, I'm gonna dry this and then we're gonna move on. Even if it's not dark enough, you'll still be able to get the point. Hair dryer again, here we go. Because, well, actually, before we do that, let's do this. Let's go ahead and grab some bleed proof. We're gonna grab a number. What am I working with? This is a number 0 round, and I'm gonna grab some bleed proof and mix it over here while the paper is still wet. So we want to create the Big Dipper. Now the Big Dipper is like a big ladle, sort of. I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to do this. Nobody laugh if I don't pull this out. So first, we're gonna create the glow. So to create the glow, we need to just touch the wet gouache onto the paper, and I'm gonna try to create the Big Dipper. So it's sort of like the handle, maybe. And then um, let's see. Then this would be the ladle part. Um, that, and that. Haha, I think, I think that's pretty cool. All right, now while they're still wet, I want to make those a little bigger, because of course that's the glow, and we're going to be dropping more white gouache into that to make it more brilliant. But for right now, that's all we need, and we need to let that dry. Okay, so we are going to close up our gouache, and then I'm going to grab the hair dryer, and we're going to dry all of this, and then we're going to go in and put in the rest of our stars and add in our trees, and that'll be a wrap. Like, it's going to be super easy. All right, that should be enough there. Let's see. Well, it's going to be enough. Now let's splatter in stars. That's pretty much the rest of it. I'm trying to think. Finally, to paint the rest of the stars, use your small detail brush to splatter opaque white paint all over the night sky. Now, of course, you know we do that on a regular basis. So what I'm going to do is grab, oh, that bleed proof dries quick. I'm going to re-wet that, keep it super concentrated, and then I'm going to dot white back in the middle of our little diffuse sections, our little diffuse thingies. To make our dipper, you just want to drop white gouache right in there so that there's a bright star kind of shining in the middle of that. And if it's not opaque enough for you, just grab grab your bleed proof and just go straight from your jar. Because you definitely want that. And if you, I mean, I guess you could just mix in a smidget of yellow. I mean, like a very tiny bit if you wanted to, but that's going to work fine for me. I like those being bright like that. Now I'm going to add, I need to make sure I keep the brush small. I don't want it too big. So I'll move up to this number, what is this? A number 6 round. And I'm going to make a small washer bleed proof here. And I am going to make sure that it's pretty opaque because we're putting in the rest of our stars. All right, so I'm just going to load that brush up with that bleed proof wash. And I'm actually going to put my hand here. And I'm going to lightly tap the handle of my brush just to get those small splatters off of it. I don't want anything bigger than the actual Big Dipper, hopefully. So I am being careful with my splatters there. There's an art book called Galaxy Watercolor by Sasha Davis. Oh, that might be interesting for somebody. That might be interesting. I have to look into that. If you're into galaxy painting, I've seen a lot of galaxy painting videos on YouTube. I've never actually necessarily been into galaxy painting, but I just thought that this lesson was cool and easy. And of course, I'm gonna have white gouache everywhere when I'm done with this, right? We know that, right? Of course we do. Because it is already splattered all over everything at this point. And just go back in if you feel you need a few more, just until you feel comfortable with what you see. This would be a really nice project. Like if you are a painter and you have kids and you're looking for something to do with them, this will be a really great project to do with the babes. Let them create a little night sky. And you can put as many or as few stars in your sky as you want to. I'm still sprinkling, as you say. And I'll even take my brush and touch down here and there. Just with the very tip of the brush though, because again I don't want anything too much bigger than the Big Dipper star. And then of course, the closer to the bottom of the page you get, the smaller they would be, because technically they would be pushed further back in the scene of the sky. I think that's good. I think that's good. Now I just need to drop in the trees and we're going to be ready to roll with this one. We'll put some ink around the edge of it and then we will fold it in half and glue it down into the book. And that'll be another page in my Create This book that I have gotten accomplished, thank goodness, because I hadn't worked in it in a minute. And now we are just painting our trees in from the bottom of our paper. I'm gonna see if I can get that to bend out just a little bit. Work with me here. All right. And what am I going to use? I guess I'm going to use this number 6 round, and we're going to use, well, there's not a black, so we're going to remix. We're using the same colors, the Payne's gray. Let's get the Payne's gray. You know what? Let's start off now. I'm going to actually use some of one of the Cockman colors in this. I'm going to mix in burnt umber. I'm going to start my mixture with burnt umber. Because the Schminker set has what is that, Venetian red in it? I don't it's or English red or something. What do they call it? They call it English Venetian red is what they call it. And it just doesn't grate out, in my opinion, as well as like say a burnt sienna or a burnt umber. But I want to mix both the Cotton burnt umber and the Schminker Venetian red here. And then I'm going to go into that with the ultramarine. And these paints are pretty quick wearing. I mean, I have done a few paintings with them now. And of course, there are colors I use more than others. So these have been pretty quick. But as I was saying, I like them. I think they cool. I don't have any qualms with them. They have some great professional properties to them, but they're not my favorite. They are not. They are not. They're okay. All right. And actually, I don't even need to really mix Payne's Gray in it, but since we have Payne's Gray mixed into the sky, we're going to mix some into this wash as well. Get it as dark and as neutral as possible. Yeah, if I was reaching for professional paints, I have to admit the Schminkels paints probably would not be the first ones I reach for. So let's start on this side so I can paint away from myself. And there looks to be, let's see, how far is that from that? So I'm trying to gauge how far it is from that star. It's about there. So I'm gonna pull down a trunk. And this is where the different way you paint will take effect. Now, I do my conifers in the blob effect, or I use a blob technique. So I basically paint blobs to represent um, the different leafy moments of my conifer. You can use dots. You can use um, linear line work. There's many different ways to paint a conifer. You just want to keep proportion in mind. They tend to get bigger towards the bottom, and they don't angle as up as much. As you get towards the bottom. Now, as I do this, my strokes or my blob gets bigger. And then I'm going to go back in and go up the middle of that. Let me add a little water to that. That's a little, not quite as loose as I want. I'm going to go up the middle of that and just kind of fill in. And voila, we have the impression of a tree. No one said it had to be perfect, right? There we go. And that's amazing that all that paint I mixed basically got used up by that one tree. Now, you could put like snow on your trees if you wanted to later on. That would be cool too. If you want to paint like a winter scene, you can take that same bleed proof and go back in after that dries and add snow to the top of those. That would be cool, right? Grab some of this Venetian. We had that in the mix. And then we had ultramarine in the mix. So this dark is made from ultramarine, Venetian red, burnt umber, and Payne's gray. And those are the colors that we've been using. That's actually kind of brown. Let's go in with a little bit more Payne's. And we definitely need to add some more ultramarine to that. I'm going to put a little water in there so I can see what's going on. It's not nearly quite as dark as I need it to be, so we're going to go in with a lot more ultramarine. There we go. I'm going to add a little water to that. I add my water slowly, that way I can keep my paint ratio where it should be. All right, that should be pretty black. It is. All right. Do we now in this example? There's another tree over on this side, rearing his little head. So we'll throw it in. Hmm? And you won't be able to see as much of this one on one side as you can on the other. Like so. Hello, Taylor. Thank you, love. This is we playing around with a little night scene with the Big Dipper in the background. I needed a really easy win for today. So over here, we're going to have a couple of little ones peeking their heads up. We got just the top of this one, which would imply that those trees are, you can almost see the bottom of it. So we're not just painting the top of trees here. I'm going to go in for a little bit more tree. We're creating entire trees here. And then again, I'm going to go in with my blob technique. And, you know, after you paint so many of these, you'll sort of get the feel for how you do it and where you want things at, how it feels in for you, what you feel is even appropriate for it. See, like that one isn't the prettiest, but once it's beside another tree, it'll be fine. That almost came out looking like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. I'm gonna keep all the ones on this side pretty small. Like I said, and see now here is more of the linear line effect, and then I can actually mix that in with the blob technique, like so, and still create a very convincing tree. So there are so many different ways to do this. So many different ways. And I'm gonna put another one in right here. Very simple, very easy. And I might should not have made that one as big, but it's there now. So let's just work on it. Start to kind of pan out in the middle, go out a little bit wider. The Charlie Brown tree was in trouble. It was, baby. Listen, I've had some pretty intense Charlie Brown moments this weekend, not just with that tree, not just with that tree. I've had quite a trying weekend altogether, and I'm just blobbing it in because all those little leaves there mixed together, and you wouldn't be able to see which one came from what tree. Again, I'm gonna go up the middle just to add a little thickness in there. All right, that works. Didn't have to be, like I said, a complete masterpiece. Now, you know what? I should have put something in the background, like a horizon and maybe a mountain line, since those trees are so straight up and forward. But anyway, it just said create something scenic. It didn't say it had, like I said, it didn't have to be a masterpiece. I wanted a completely easy silhouette, and for what it's worth, it plays off of what's in the book pretty well. Not exactly the same, because you guys know I never try to do anything exactly the same, but it plays off the very little simple, easy lesson in the beginning of the book very well. 3 steps: background, stars, trees. Done. Very easy. Anybody can do it. So this is the type of artwork you would get in this book. So, I just kind of want to show you what you could expect throughout this book. And it goes into all types of things. You're going to get into desert silhouettes. It covers the northern lights. So basically a lot of sky work. Like this probably would have been really pretty to paint. I like the fact that, like I said earlier, it keeps everything kind of silhouetted in the beginning to make it easy so that you'll get used to the different things that are going on. Here you have a super blood moon that it teaches you how to paint, which is amazingly beautiful. Um, like that would have been another nice. So all of these are really, really, really good techniques. All of it was really good techniques, showing you really different. And I like the fact that it breaks it down and like, who needs 6 steps to create this painting? But it breaks it down into 6 steps, mainly because it's really concentrating really hard on on the moon itself. You got the cotton candy sky, which is the original illustration that we were looking at when we were reading something. It must have been the beginning. Yeah, see here. So there's that silhouette. Like that would be something. Like these are all like really easy, really super great wins. It does suggest a color palette that you should use for each one, and it is constantly referring back to all of the techniques, including reference pages for those techniques. And it does get a little bit more complicated as the book goes on. You're going to get the mountains are calling. So now you're going to move into mountains versus just concentrating on skies. And then there is, let's see, after the mountain section, it's still kind of mountain. Happy little trees. Okay, Bob Ross. We don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. Of course, we all know where that quote comes from. Yeah. And then I love, see, as I say, they're going to progressively start to get a little bit more complicated. Autumn Misty Times. I'm just kind of showing you guys all the projects in here. A study in trees, where you're going to start doing tree studies. Magical snow forest, which is where I was telling you earlier. You could actually turn this into a winter landscape. Just take you some bleed proof and put it on a smaller brush and go back and start just laying that bleed proof right on the top of each one of those little blobs, and watch how like magic snow on trees appear. So cool, so cool, so cool. Let's see, where else? We have a walk through the woods. So there are, ooh, look at the mist. So this is where you're going to work. These are some really good basic techniques for landscapes in this book that once you put them all together, kind of make this amazing painting. Or it teaches like the couple nights ago. I'll give you an example. Well, not a couple nights ago. It's been about a week or more ago now. We were over in the creation station, and I was working inside the My Treasure art journal. I'm not sure if you guys remember this one, but we made this actually in a pre-recorded video. It's on the channel. I forget what it's called, but you will recognize it because it has this book in the thumbnail. But we made this journal. Basically, we created water. We took water soluble pages and we painted them, and then we took those pages and turned them into signatures and made a jacket for it, and basically turned it into a mixed media journal, right? So the other night, well, I keep saying the other night, but it's been a while ago. Over in Patreon, we took one of those pages and started to create like this nighttime silhouette scene on it. And one of the techniques I was trying to pull off was to pull off doing a misty look right at the very bottom of the water, and where the water meets the mountain. And I wasn't necessarily able to pull it off the way I wanted to. So it's this book teaches you those type of really basic techniques so that when you are in the midst of doing something like this, because let me show you, this page originally started out looking like, let's see if I can find the other side of it right quick. Okay, so yes, the page started out looking like this, and we took it from this to this. Um, and I really wish at that particular point I had had the extra knowledge on making mist here, because I can do it on a normal basis, but doing it in this really mixed media, sort of field atmosphere was a little different for me. So I just like the fact that this book is going to cover basic techniques like that, so that as you progress in your artistry, you'll be ready for it. Here we have birch trees, which you guys know I do birch trees all the time. I actually started to do that painting today, and changed my mind because I didn't want you guys to be like, oh, another birch tree. Um, do you suppose she's a wild? Do you suppose she's a wildflower? So now this is where you're going to get into different types of flowers and trees, creating using a salt technique to create flowers, in really wet washes. which is actually a really great way to kind of give the impression of flowers. Even so far as sunlight and sunlight beams and rays. So this book is going to cover quite a few things. Let me back up and say this book is going to cover a lot of techniques that you will use every single time you do a landscape painting. So if you are a landscape artist, somebody that's into landscapes, somebody that's wants to get into landscapes and you haven't been doing them before, I definitely do suggest this book, recommend this book. Not again, not because it's going to give you the most complicated projects in the world. Look, that's beautiful. So it does give you. I mean, you will get to the harder projects. Not that it gives you the most complicated projects in the world. What I like most about this book is that it takes you to the base. I mean, the true basic of landscapes. Those things that will like puzzle you on how do I do this in the moment? How do I create mist? Or what shape am I looking for the different type of trees? How detailed should this mountain be considering how far in the distance it is? Um, Painting looser without being very uptight, which is one of my issues. So definitely a book I suggest, my friends. Hopefully, you know, it's not something I don't think it, let me see, it is 22.99 US. I believe that's how much this book is on Amazon. Now this book was gifted to the studio. So I'm gonna jump over to Amazon real quick just to see how much it costs if you were to get it on Amazon, because I'm pretty sure you probably can't get it on Blix or Jerry's or anything like that. But let me see. Wilderness, watercolor, landscapes, Kobe Blue. Okay, so Wilderness Watercolor Landscapes, 30 eye-catching scenes anyone can master is currently $17.93 with overnight shipping. If you decided it's something that you wanted to add to your resources, I will be sure to put a link in the video description for anyone who may be interested in this book. When I do the edits, which will be tomorrow. So it won't be in the video description today, but it will be in the edits for tomorrow. So you can definitely catch it in the replay. Or maybe when I get off live, I'll go ahead and at least drop the link for the book in the video description, even before the edits. I will also drop the link for the Schminker Hold'em little Canteen 10 travel set. Keep in mind that it only comes with 8. It doesn't come with the additional 4 that are down the center. Those are cotton paints that I added myself to augment this set. So there's that. Let's see. 29.99 in Canada. Hey Nelson, 29.99. 29. I mean, I'll be honest, for the information in the book, hmm, I think it's a $30. Okay, I guess I can see this being a $30 project. I really could. I really, really could. Because it really does break things as far as a landscape is concerned down. Like I said, it's definitely for your beginner to novice level watercolorist or hobbyist who is looking to break into painting landscapes. But it definitely covers all of the basics, all of those rules that you need to know before you set out to try to break any of them to create your own work in your own style. So definitely something I would suggest giving a try. But if you're already a landscape artist, if you already know a lot of these techniques, if this is something that landscapes are stuff that you tackle and battle on a regular basis, um, I don't think it may be the best bet for you. But this is a fun book to learn landscape stuff with. It is. Even for me, someone who's been painting landscapes for a minute, I found myself being kind of enthralled in reading and what in the different ways he worded and said the different things. And it's like some stuff just kind of clicked the minute you read, it's like, oh, that makes so much sense. Even to me. So I really do suggest the book. I suggest the book. So let's circle back around to what we were doing all of this for. Nessa said it looks like a useful and fun book. I think it is, Nessa. I really do. I think it is. So I'm probably going to eventually end up stamping some type of quote in this. I do hate the fact that, our Big Dipper that we created is going to be folded in half, but it is what it is. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that everything is dry, because now what we want to do is insert this page inside our create our create this book. And now this is, of course, we were supposed to be creating a place that we wanted, that was real or fantasy, that we wanted to travel to. And instead, I use an example from the book, but that's okay, because what I can eventually do is come back in here and, I don't know, I can add stuff to the background. I could do some stamping. I can do some collaging on top of this page. This could be served just as a background. So there's no rule that says you have to be done with it at this level. So I'm gonna fold it in half, because we got to get it to fit in the book. Okay, and let's see where they put a crease at. Yep, and put the crease right down, almost the center of our little dipper cup. But it is what it is. Excuse me. I'm just gonna give that a good finger press. All right, and now let's make sure this gonna fit where we want it to. Yes, it is. All right. Now let me grab some glue, because this is what you have to do, my friends, if you are not painting directly in your book. And like I said, the pages are not water soluble in the Create This book. So if you're going to be creating directly on the pages of the book using anything that's water soluble, again, I will suggest gesso. Gesso the page first. Gesso the page first, my friend. You can use clear gesso since the pages are already white. And of course, you can use white gesso if that's what you want to do. If you want to do project on black paper, you can use black gesso. So there are many different options out there that you could use. I'm putting overkill of glue on this page because I don't want it lifting out the book for any reason at all. And this is Fabri-Tac. It is a silicone-based glue, probably one of the strongest glues on the market. And I love it, love it, love it for my crafting because it dries super fast. So I'm just gonna sit there in the crease. I'm gonna have a little time to work with this. There we go. I think that's good enough room, top and bottom. And I'm actually going to close that book, and I'm going to grab a brayer, and I am just going to make sure that that page is adhered inside the book. And while I'm at it, I might as well go ahead. Well, I was about to say I might as well go ahead and attach the front to the book. Attach the cover that I made for it to it as well. But there you go. So this is where I am on Create This book so far. I've covered the front, as I said. We did the kind of I did the kind of beginner welcome page. Like I said, that was done in acrylic paint. Then watercolor was done to fill this empty box, and I wanted to use an olive branch at the beginning, just to kind of, olive branch, positive energy throughout the book. I've got the front cover made. I need to put on. I started to work on this page, which I'm really just going to do in color pencils. So everything on this will be in color pencils. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go just yet. And then we will, every now and then, we'll grab this book and we'll work on another page. We'll work on another prompt. until we are eventually are done with the entire thing. Let's look at what we added today. So here is what we added today, which was to create a scenic image. And now that is in our book, and we can add more to it later if we need to or if we want to. And because of the glue we use, as you can see, nothing ran through to the other side, nothing is wet. So it left this side of the page absolutely pristine to use. And doing it this way, I feel like it's gonna make this like such a fun adventure to get this book done. So now as I look at this on screen, I want to do some other stuff to it. Like I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there should be mountains in the background. There may be some other things that I want to add to it. So I don't know. Or maybe I'll leave it just like this and only end up putting a quote. Maybe I'll use the brother scan and cut machine to cut out a quote and then just glue it in so that it'll match. And yeah, so really quick, easy, straightforward project. Like I said, this was nothing that was gonna blow your mind. It was just so that Ken could get an easy win based on the crazy, crazy weekend. Wow, Ken can get an easy win based on the crazy weekend he has had. Love that. Need that on a t-shirt. Yes, indeed. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If nothing else, hopefully you were able to suck in and suck up the information about. I'm really going to go ahead and attach that because I want to do another page in this book now. That was fun. I want to do another prompt. Create an assessment. Dedicate this page to an everyday task. Write about whether you like or dislike it. Of course, mine will be translated. That prompt will be translated into art for me. But yeah, just I love this. I'm gonna start grabbing this on a regular basis, especially when I can't think of anything to do, because I will just simply transcribe the the prompts into something that I would do artistically. Create a scrapbook page. Make a one-page scrapbook. Attach photos and decorate the page with color, paper, tape, stickers, etc. So yeah, I would create a art spread like I was putting it in a scrapbook. So yeah, if you guys don't have this book, I'm gonna throw this in the video description as well. I think that it is an absolute amazing creative prompt book, and it's different. All of the prompts don't just cater to one thing, so it's really gonna force you outside the box to think. So there you have that. That is gonna wrap things up for today. I really appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with me. Do stay tuned for much more content, much more artwork coming up. We will have a pre-recorded release this Wednesday. I do not have anything to review at the moment, so there won't be a release this Friday, but we will have our pre-recorded this Wednesday, and then of course I will see you all back here next Monday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time for our regularly scheduled live. Those people in Creation Station, I'll see you at 5 p.m. today. And in the meantime, friends, enjoy the rest of your week. Create as much as you possibly can. Try again because practice is key. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, just keep creating. Bye.